Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. I'm very pleased to have Laura Bowers as my guest today, and let me tell you about Laura. She is the CEO of the PMO Boss. After 20 years of leading projects and teams, she has witnessed some of the best and the worst practices out there. She took that knowledge and developed a streamlined approach for implementing and managing a project management office, PMO, using the B.O.S.S method. Laura absolutely loves talking about making project management simpler and the impact of great leadership at all levels. Today, we're going to talk about a subject that I have talked about many, many times over my career as being a PM. How to resuscitate a dying PMO, strategies for revival. Please welcome my guest, Laura Bowers.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
Yes, Laura, we have similar backgrounds, 20 plus years of a PM. I actually came out of retirement in 2021 to set up a PMO for a very large, long, many year project. Mm-hmm. And it was, yes, there were some of the worst and the best in that time too. That one
it
year.
Happens that way, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, and we can get into this talking about when you aren't brought in, you're brought in after it's bad.
It really depends, right?
Yeah. So that's always interesting where you're to fix things after they didn't start things well. So anyway, we're going to get into all this fun stuff as we go along, but we always ask the simple, easy question of all my guests. Just tell us where you live. Where do you call home?
I am in College Park, Maryland, which is right outside of Washington, D.C.
So I do know that very well. My best friend, whose name is also Vicki, was moved from Pennsylvania to College Park, Maryland. And so I spent some time there. That's
very
small world.
Yeah.
So why is leadership and culture so important to a project success? And we only have 30 minutes now, ma'am.
Right. Yeah. Let me start my thesis. No, so it really is. I mean, I think this comes across all threads of just professional engagements, right? All jobs. But I've just really noticed that if you have a good leader that is driving an open and communicative culture, the project is going to be more successful, right? People want to show up. They want to work towards the goal of completing the project. When there's inspiring leaders and the ability to feel like you're contributing to something bigger than yourself, it just makes a world of difference.
Absolutely does. And so it does, as I said, I was a project manager for many, many years, and always multi-year, discipline, across the world. So teams were very diverse, and some of them I was brought in just as a helper, and some of them I actually managed. And I will say, those that I managed, it was much easier to more quickly get to that high-performing team because you knew what that you started with. You did the groundwork. So whenever we talk about the best and the worst practices, Let's start at the very beginning. Whenever you just have those people that call you and say, I want to do a project, I have this idea. What are the first things that you would, to make it a great experience, what would you recommend that you and those stakeholders or those sponsors should do?
Yeah, I think it is really critical to first identify who the actual stakeholders are, right? There's the person who comes up sometimes with the idea or communicates the idea, but they're not necessarily the same person that has that vision of what the finished product looks like. So a lot can get lost in translation if you don't have a very clear understanding, I mean, ultimately of what your requirements are. So I see that happen a lot where just in the beginning, there's a lot of tumultuous, just what are we trying to achieve? And that's almost impossible to build a plan around.
Yeah. I had one project where and the project, again, I said multi-year. So I would think we were in year 2 of a five-year project, and we still were asking the question, what is your vision?
Yeah, that sounds familiar. I've experienced some of the same in my tenure.
Yeah, because really part of the PMO, right, is to be able to, and the project lead is to be able to, as you said, inspire. And so if you don't understand what the vision of the sponsor is, it's
Right.
really difficult for you to be inspirational, motivational, feel like you know what you're doing. I mean, you're out there, I'm leading these cats, but I don't know where I'm taking them.
Exactly. I mean, it kind of a callback right to the top of, confuses the culture and people don't know what they're working
Yeah.
towards and they start to lack motivation.
So what's another best practice? So you've got the vision, you actually have some requirement sessions starting and you're making headway. What is another best practice that you would do in that early on stages?
Yeah, I think it's one thing that really needs to happen is that you need to be realistic about what can be accomplished with the resources you have. I've seen a lot. It's almost like best practices mirror worst practices, so you'll notice that quite a bit. But I've seen often where leadership, like they just want done, right? They don't necessarily understand all the nitty gritty pieces and parcels that go into getting these things done and how it can really kind of, burn people out. So sometimes they'll just pile on too much, and being able to be in a dialogue where you can be honest about properly resource loading people and not putting them at, 150% and hoping for the best is going to set you up for success. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? You get something done early and then you can, start working on something else. But a lot of times I see it happening the other way around.
Yeah. So in a lot of projects now, you have to, it's a different mindset, in a lot of ways. I found that my last several years, it was better in some ways because we were doing agile rather than waterfall. So agile's allowing us to fail, fix, and we were doing projects that were never been done before. So when you talk about having it set up for success, and those resources being burned out, I think it's really worth talking about for a few minutes, because you'll get somebody, one person maybe, that really gets the new technology, what they have to do. And now you want them to train the other people, but they know what to do. So we need their brains working on figuring out this new thing. When is a time that you have to say, okay, we need to add resources to keep this very important person to not walk?
Yeah, they talk a lot in IDLE about safety culture. And sometimes I feel like that's a little bit of an extreme like wording for it. But essentially, it's letting employees know that they can speak up when they need to, right? So if you have a project manager that is starting to like train and do and working on reports and being at all these meetings, I mean, they very quickly run out of time. And if they don't feel like they can raise that as a risk or issue, right? They can very easily like internalize that and bring a project down, just because they're afraid to speak up. So I think that building that up front when you're putting together your project team or your staff or however you're configured is letting people know that, bad news doesn't age well and to speak up as soon as there's something, even if it can be managed within that resources, time, and allocation, just bringing it up creates the conversation around it and provides the levels of support to, make things happen.
Yeah. And you mentioned in the very beginning, we talked about the fact that how important communication is for a PMO to be successful. The communication now is somewhat, I guess it's the best and the worst, because when I had projects that were across the world, it was audio conferencing. So we were having the people in the other side of the world answering questions, yes, 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 but they're really, we're going, yes, 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 yes. And you didn't know until it was later that they didn't get what you were asking for, or really didn't feel comfortable committing, but as you were mentioned before, didn't feel safe to say, no, I don't want to, I can't do this, we can't make this, because they knew the big bosses were saying it needs to be done by this time. So how, now with Zoom and things like that, Teams, we can see their faces, but are we still, as project leads or PMO members, are we still keeping it to ourselves when we have concerns? And
yeah, I think there's two kind of like pro tips I can weave in here, right? One is that as a project manager, right, you're taking full ownership of the project. So what I've realized is that when you go to a whole project team and you say who has risks, who has issues, like let's identify them, that can sometimes actually be confusing because they don't think in the terms of risk management like many project managers do. So sometimes just putting it into layman's terms of just like, hey, is anybody coming across any issues? Is there any reason we may not hit this deadline? Like just asking those questions a little differently will allow, especially technical people and others that are more like narrowly focused on whatever their tasks are with the project team, to think about it a little differently, right? Even questions of like, is everyone's PTO being accounted for? Like, do we think we're going to run into any scheduling conflicts? And asking more like just tangible questions as opposed to almost more esoteric of like, is there any risk? Like, does anyone see any problems coming? I think you can get a lot more out of the team to where they're not highlighting problems, right? They're really just speaking about what's going on in a much more conversational way. And then the other one I would suggest, and I've used a lot with my team, is that when they do go to a meeting or get guidance of some sort, and it doesn't, always seem feasible, doing that reply of, especially when these are not in meetings, doing some type of email reply saying, hey, per our conversation, my understanding is this, and then whether or not you have concerns, right? So you can either leave it at that and loop in people who can escalate an issue, or you can identify like, understand that this is what you want. Is that correct? Because we may have to reprioritize, right? And you can start to introduce a bigger conversation may need to be had around whatever stakeholders' bigger ideas are.
And whenever you have those remote workers and whatnot, I think it's even more so important to be able to communicate not only the, oh God, this is going on or this happened, but yay, you reach this little goal, this small goal, this, milestone, and let's celebrate. Let's take a minute, make sure you recognize those people, especially if it's in a time crunch and everybody's just head down working hard, and nobody is really feeling the love.
Yeah, I've always loved the opportunity to celebrate someone when they least expect it. And kind of like the almost unsung heroes type of thing. Like, this person, they were supposed to log off at such and such time, but they powered through it and that was not required and they did it anyway. And thanking people for doing things like that, because a lot of people feel forced to put in the extra hours. But the entire environment around work right now, I mean, it's just changed so much over the last couple of years that you really need to build a lot of that encouragement, appreciation, all of it into the cultures.
Yeah. One of the things that I found that was really aligned with entrepreneurship, that I moved to, is the fact that with when you're dealing with other entrepreneurs, you have to have that positive mindset. You have to be able to ask questions in a way that aren't that are or more positive, to get people not feeling as if you're being judgmental, or there's going to be a blame or a big hammer coming your way. And so how important is it to be able to, as you are dealing with various levels of communication, you're communicating up to the CEO or to the directors or to your peers or those below you, how important it is that you are able to do that multiple communication level?
Yeah, personally, I feel like that's what makes or breaks a project manager. I've seen a lot of people come into the game and they just, they could be super, super organized and keep track of everything, but they don't know how to communicate the messages at the right level, right? And they kind of get passed over or are viewed as less valuable over time because they can't clearly communicate the needs of the project. So it's definitely unfortunate when you see it, because it's a skill that, could be cultivated, and is something that I've always tried to cultivate with my team members. But for the ones that just knock it out of the park, honestly have an innate ability to build rapport. They just have that kind of natural talent to build relationships to where they don't feel pressured as they're going up and down that chain of communication.
So what are, in your opinion, in your years of experience, the top 5 lessons that you've learned over these years?
Yeah, top 5. So I think some of them we've probably touched on, but I really think the assessing your resources is going to be one of the key ones, right? Really understanding what's possible so that you set up for success from the jump and not failure. I would also say prioritization, somewhat in the same vein, right? Like if there are multiple things going on, some of these companies that it sounds like you and I've worked for in the past, right? They're can be pretty big and there's multiple things going on. So you don't have the luxury of just working on one project,
That's true. That is true.
So that would be, I almost couldn't even imagine my career if it was just one project at a time. So you do need to be able to have some realistic conversations of what is more important. And even beyond that, it can't change every day. I've been in environments where they are constantly changing the priority, and that level of churn just sets everything back. You can't get any momentum going. So being honest about your prioritizations and then sticking to them at least for a period of time so that the team can, almost like a train, right? Build up that momentum and get things going. Another thing that I see happening, I would put in the top 5, is scope creep, which is essentially when, requirements get added to a project down the road. So we talked a little bit at the beginning about having some really clear requirements. And if there are going to be new ones, there's a process called change management where you would formally accept them into the project. It wouldn't be, unfortunately, what you see is like a lot of willy-nilly, like, oh, now I want 10 instead of 5 or whatever it may be, right? So having a real kind of iron fist when it comes to changing the scope of the project and making sure that everyone is in agreement when the project does expand, because that will change budget, timeline, schedule, the whole thing.
Yeah, and to be able to accept changes, because as I said, a lot of projects I did were the agile, and so as what we originally thought was not the best solution, and so we did have to do change management.
Right.
The one of the things I think that also helps in that is process mapping in the early stages, in the very, very beginning. And a lot of folks hate to do that because they just want to get started right away. So what is your thoughts, or what are your thoughts on having process management as PMO?
Yeah, I like it. Anything that is going to clarify how things are going to operate, or at least start to give you the bones of what things are going to look like, is going to help with everything a lot. I feel that majority of the project timeline is in the requirements and the designing or engineering, if it, IT related. The implementation, if well planned, should be short, right? And that's not always what I see, right? Sometimes you see implementations that are multi-year that kind of drag on because things change. So I personally believe that putting that effort in up front makes the execution much more seamless. And when you have end users and customers dealing with the implementation, that's what needs to be smooth, not the front end. That can be messy. That you can churn and work through things there. But you want to shoot for a nice deployment, a nice implementation.
Absolutely. So what is it about the B.O.S framework that makes PMOs successful? You spent some time thinking about this, I know.
Yes. So we did put a framework together so that we can kind of step into any company and get a good assessment of what's going on. So that B.O.S stands for baseline, outline, setup, and sustain. So in that process, when we are baselining, there's a pretty comprehensive assessment, questions, meeting time, right, that we spend with each company to see where they're at, what processes are working, what's not. Do they have a small team, a big team, right? Tools they use or don't use, all those questions to just kind of see where we're at.
Yeah.
From there, we outline kind of our recommendations based on best practices. There you go. And then once we kind of regroup with them to see what makes the most sense, again, based on resources, because we, follow what we preach here. It is based on what they can actually support. We work with them to set it up and implement those processes and systems that will actually work. And what I think is most important is our focus is to make it sustainable. So we don't want to leave a company with a process that they cannot uphold, right? That's a temporary fix at best. So we're going to look at solutions that are custom fit to what that organization can handle at that time, but they will then be set up to scale. Because once you have the framework, then you can just start adding in pieces. It makes it much easier to grow. But we like to focus on things that are simple and sustainable and not overthink it.
Yeah, for sure. So we talked at the beginning of this about the fact that we're resuscitating this dying PMO. How do you breathe life back into this lifeless team?
Yeah.
Especially you haven't built, if you're just coming in, you really haven't built a relationship with them, and you're just getting as much as you can in that first few interviews, right?
Yeah. So believe it or not, this is actually usually more fun because we follow the same process, we go through the same steps, but we also infuse a big dose of like culture revival, right? So it is actually a good focus on team building.
Yeah.
We'll look at the mission. We'll make sure that that's actually clear across the company, or, that a lot of times that's why those problems exist, right? The vision, the messaging isn't clear. Teams don't feel like they're working together. So we'll try to pick those things out, right, in a best way we can. I think it's a lot of companies struggle with this, especially as we've moved into like a super hybrid work environment. It is very challenging to create teams that feel cohesive. But I can draw from some of my experiences of the things that we've done and helped people feel together when they're not, and then encourage that culture, right? So that the PMO comes back to life with new processes and new sense of team.
Yeah. So how, what made you decide to go from what you were doing and open your own business when you know that there was a risk there for sure? I mean,
right. Yeah, it's
I did not choose to do my PMO business. And even though I love project management, I'll come and work with you, but opening a business, my dear, hats off to you.
Yeah. Well, maybe there's an opportunity for partnership. I love that. No, I think it just, COVID did a number on a lot of people,
Yes,
with
sure did.
what they're doing and kind of what they want. And I definitely took some time during that period to reflect. And I really feel that I can make a bigger impact with more companies. We like to focus on entrepreneurs of smaller businesses, help them be successful so that they don't fall into that statistic of not making it. This is what 90% of small businesses, don't make it, is that well-known statistic. So we want to help that number go down, right? And a lot of times you can be an entrepreneur with a super amazing idea, but you can't wear all the hats and you don't have all the skills. So sometimes taking that visionary and complementing them with I'm very type A, very organized, can be a beautiful match and can really help companies kind of push into a framework in which they can succeed and scale.
And I think just like small departments try to do things themselves, I think a lot of smaller companies and entrepreneurs don't even think in terms of this should be a project, like everything in life is a project to me. I mean, everything is a project. And so I think that if your service is something that they can understand, okay, you're to make things go smoothly so that that business owner, that entrepreneur can concentrate on growing the business and doing what they do best and having all of your projects be one less thing to worry about, except maybe giving that vision. Maybe just that one.
Yeah, I mean, certainly depending on the size of the company, depends on how involved that entrepreneur will be. But I often see that it's coming from individuals that are they're overwhelmed, right? And like you said, they don't define things as a project necessarily. It's just a whole bunch of disconnected tasks, right?
Yeah.
So helping them get that structure makes everything clearer, and it allows their team, if they're in the position to have one, communicate better with them, right? Ultimately, getting your products out faster, more revenue opportunity, less headaches. It's really beneficial.
That's why I love to do the process map in the information gathering stage, because it really brought to light, as they're talking about their process, they're discovering, oh my God, I don't even know why I do that. It was what the person before me did, but it doesn't make any sense. But we do it because that's what they were doing. It's like, well, there's something you could get rid of, Let's make that sales process be only 2 weeks long instead of 90 days.
Right. That's a huge improvement to the bottom line.
Yeah. All right. Well, it is time now for us to go to the rapid fire. So I just have a couple. How do our thoughts, one of the things you talk about is mindset, and I think that's perfect. How do our thoughts impact the way we look at our success?
Yeah, as somebody, I'm a former, corporate burnout, right? I got there. I was pretty burnout, and my thoughts weren't great. It was a tough time for me in my career. So I think your mindset, it's going to set you up as how your day goes, right? If you log in the morning and you got nothing but like, I can't wait to log off, that's not going to be a good day. But if you log in and you're like, oh, we got to get this project done, we're working on this, it's going to help these people, you're just energized in a totally different way. And that's all controlled by your mindset. So it's huge. I think it's everything, to be honest.
And you have, as I mentioned, oftentimes a very diverse group. You're working with not only individually diverse, but IT, finance, marketing, and everybody is thinking they're the most important piece of that. And so how you quarterback that, I think, is really important. The way you come with your mindsets, being positive and keeping them thinking that way, I think is really critical to the success, because it can easily go down the toilet.
Yeah, I think sometimes everyone's your favorite child, right? Every department is the best, and you that's part of the rapport building. You kind of play that, I've definitely sometimes played the character of like, hey, it's not me, it's this report I got to get done. Like, just, help me out here. I'm here to help you. So there is a lot of haggling that, sometimes goes along with it. But again, if you know what the greater good is or what is actually trying to be accomplished, and you're not looking to ding people or, find problems, it'll change the experience for everybody.
Yeah. All right. The last question I have is, what is next for you, Laura Bowers?
Well, right now we have a somewhat ambitious goal for really what's a startup. I am hoping to help 100 entrepreneurs in the next year get
Awesome.
themselves organized and help beat the odds. So we got ourselves a little mission here. We will be doing a workshop in January about annual planning.
Good.
So that, if you guys follow along with us, you'll find that information as it becomes available. So that'll be an exciting way to try to reach a wider audience.
So definitely then you need to come back in late December or early January in case you're not doing it till the end, so that we can help promote that for you. What about a book?
That'd be great. I mean, there's a lot of ideas. I am a project manager, so I have, a whole bunch of things I want to do. But for the end of this year, because we do project management at the PMO Boss, we are focused on launching the workshop and getting to those goals in 2024 of reaching 100 entrepreneurs, small businesses.
Wow.
So
if you build a workshop and you do a bunch of these podcasts, get it, like I give a transcript, you get a book, no problem done. You can do it.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. Well, I will definitely work towards that.
And I can connect you with a number of publishers that can help you with that. Even if you, especially even if you want to do a down and dirty, like the nitty gritty top 101 easy place, get your PMO or get a PMO for your smallest business, just so you do it. Just do it. We have Dr. Smiley can definitely help you get that quick book out there. It doesn't have to be War and Peace, a little short thing that they can get through and think, okay, I can get this project done if I follow
we love simple, right? Something punchy that actually helps.
Yes. So we'll hook you up with Dr. Smiley.
Thank you.
We will definitely want to be able to share the information, because I know you audience are wanting to know how to connect with Laura. So this will all be on my findyourleadershipconfidence.com website, as well as my YouTube channel. Hopefully you're subscribing so that we can help grow that channel and I can keep bringing you these awesome people like Laura Bowers. Laura's website is https://www.thepmoboss.com, thepmoboss.com. Facebook, thepmoboss.com. Don't we love her? And LinkedIn, the same, thepmoboss.com. If you can't remember that, I've said it 3 times, so I'll say it one more time. thepmoboss.com. Laura, what can they find on PMOBoss.com?
Yeah, like I said, I'm sticking with that simple thing, right? You can find us the same everywhere you go. If you do make it to the website, we actually have a guide up there. It's free and it walks through the top 7 strategies for project management for people that really don't like project management, is really what it boils down to. And it touches on some of the things we spoke about today.
See, that's why you need the book. That's for those people. Here, take this book. Then call me when you have questions. That builds a relationship, right? Okay, so again, you go to the PMOBoss.com for all the good tips. And if you need more help, just contact her. Her contact information is on that website. Well, Laura, it's been wonderful. I do love still talking about project management. As I said, everything you do in life is a project. And if you want to be less stressed, just get a good PMO.
I concur.
All right. Well, as always, I remind everyone that life is a journey and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.